Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of swapping the ECTO-1's floor by myself with zero experience. I'm showing you a little bit of what you saw last video. This is just showing how we got here. I ripped all the floor out and now we can begin modifying the floor pan. So as you know, I got a 1959 Impala floor pan. They don't make one specifically for Cadillac Hearses. They don't make one for Cadillacs at all. It's only for the Impalas, but it's the same thing. Except for the Hearses, specifically for me, it's got a flat section in the back and it doesn't angle up, so I couldn't use the back of the floor pan. I cut it 4 or 5 inches too short, and I'm making these templates out of cardboard, actually out of the box that the floor pan came in, making those flat so they're just going to completely replicate what I have on the floor now, except 12 inches closer. I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, so you can see what I've got there. They line up perfectly. Once I made sure the one fit perfectly, look at that. Once I made sure the first fit perfectly, made a second just to make sure that, just in case it was any different at all. So now I've got both. Then you can see I'm doing a little tracing and cutting. This actually isn't that hard, as hard as it used to be for me. Metal fab used to be a lot harder for me a couple months ago, but I'm actually getting pretty comfortable with it. Here I am cutting that precise angle, and I don't show it, but I actually cut that 4 or 5 times to get the angle perfect. This is the final result. It actually fits super tight, and I know it's going to be a good weld if it's super close. Once I make sure I'm comfortable with it, I make the second cut so I don't have 2 that don't fit, but the first fit, first try, so I'm not that worried. There it goes, sitting in place. So that's what I'm talking about. The flat part needs to be, completely flat on the bottom. It doesn't need to angle up in the back like it did before. You can see me tacking it in, getting kind of comfortable with my tacks. I have a little problem with them engaging as much as they should, but not that worried about it because I think I'm getting a little better. And these welds are super strong anyways. I had a little issue on that front left corner over there, you can see, but I think I hammered it in and got it tight. No one's going to see this part, so not a big deal. Here it is sitting back in the car. That's what it's going to look like. All that extra space, that's going to be a flat section. And I show that in a second, but just explaining. That's how much shorter the floor is. Here I am making one of the flat sections that's going to be sitting out and sitting it in just like that. It takes me a second, but take a look. That's what the floor is going to look like now. And then after this, I tape it in, get it flat. I had to make the left and the right a little different because I needed to take a lot more off of the left, but whatever. That's what the floor is gonna look like. So good little mock-up. I was pretty happy about that. Here I am prepping all of the surfaces that are going to be welded on. Really, all of the rust needs to be dealt with, but that rust needs to be gone so it can be real smooth, perfect steel. Just knocking it down. There's a big rust section that I don't fix, just spoiler alert. I don't care about that. I end up just POR or KBS sealing over it, and I think it's fine. Just getting all of the areas that I'm gonna need to get welded on perfectly flat and straight. That includes the lap area, just grinding everything down. That's actually a really annoying process. I wish there was like a way to do it, maybe like sandblasting, but I don't have a sandblaster. All I have is a little Harbor Freight grinder. That's the end result. Honestly, not that bad. Those areas, they look ugly, but they do clean up later. You can see how bad the right side was stored. I don't know if there was maybe if it was stored in the outside for only right side, but the left has a lot less rust. And honestly, you can see a lot more, and I'm not showing it now. Right now, I'm just kind of creepily showing the issues from part 1. I bought a little drill bit that I didn't like. Anyways, I'm not talking about it because it doesn't matter. So yeah, here I am getting the floor back in. I ended up doing this like 50 times throughout the job, using the self-tappers to get them permanently affixed. So now for the first time, I've got it laid out exactly where it needs to be. This is the first time it's been to the millimeter where it's gonna stay. So all the way down, I've got it perfect all the way around. And now we're ready to move on to getting rid of all the rust. This job is pretty intensive. But I prefer the wire drill to the grinder. Anyways, here I am washing it down, getting all the rust off before I can degrease. I'm using Purple Power. I was recommended it by the hardware store I use and wasn't mad at all. I actually really enjoy it. That stuff is awesome. very industrial grade. Like, it'll mess you up if you're like inhaling it for too long. That's the end result for day whatever 5, whatever day this is, I don't remember, but that's the end result. Looks pretty good. I've seen worse. It was certainly worse before, beginning of the video. This is just a clip I threw into me driving the car because I wanted to have a little fun. So I was sitting on a toolbox for this scene, but it doesn't matter. So now I can show you some of the stuff I've been doing off camera. I got the headlights wired back in. I haven't got all the front lights wired in, but it's not video worthy. But I also got the hoses installed. I got these hoses from Ecto Tech on Instagram. He sent them to me. Don't worry about that bad wiring. That's getting changed. Made those brackets myself for the hoses. I didn't think it was important, so I didn't really film it. Here I'm using a Eastwood, I believe Eastwood Fast Etch. This stuff is intense. I think it's the same as POR 15, but oh my gosh, this stuff is nuts. You can already see a lot of the rust being turned into iron phosphate. I think it uses the zinc phosphate. No, it turns iron phosphate into zinc phosphate. That's what it is. I don't know anything about chemistry, but basically you just keep it moist for half an hour. I put saran wrap over it just to make sure that it doesn't get dried out, and then after a half hour pull it off and look at the before and after. That is mental. All of the good metal that I ground down is perfectly gray, and then all the rust that I left is black paintable steel. It's shocking. Down there in the brown area, I dry it out and do more just because I don't want any brown. I do it a couple more times in those areas. Here I am standing down. Actually, look, if you look real close, you can actually see some original primer that survived on that cross brace. So there's some areas on the left side that were so clean and original that you can still see primer, which is shocking that any of it survived at all. So now you see I've got this little issue. Once it dries off completely, I've got this white chalky issue where everything is just chalky to the touch, and I don't like it. A little bit of white residue goes off on my fingers every time I touch it. I actually have to hose it down quite a lot. Here's just a shot of me moving the car around. That took way too long. It was running horribly that day. Anyways, got everything taped off. All the surfaces that I don't want KBS seal on, I ended up taping off, and I'm really glad I did that because they say you can weld through it, but I think that's a lie because the weld doesn't seem to permeate quite as well. Here you can see some area I still need to clean up, but I ignore it for this part. So my process here is to do some tacks that I kind of just sit on it, on a specific weld spot for a little while longer than an original tack, just because I want it to permeate. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I like to leave it on a little bit until it's just about to burn through and blow out. I have to move the ground around a good amount, but I'm just trying to not overheat the metal. But then again, it's not gonna really warp. The only thing it ended up warping a little bit is the flat section I added in, but I was able to push it back in at the end, so not a huge deal. Yeah, so these welds look a little ugly, but once they grind down, they look fine. And I think the color that I'm getting, that little bluish color, I think that means that I'm getting a good temp, which is nice. Some of the, like you can see, they grind down okay, and no one's ever going to look at this, and it's going to be covered in some sort of undercoating and KBS seal, so I'm not worried about it being ugly. No one's ever going to be under this car unless I run them over, so. Here's what the final passover looks like. It is not bad at all. If you're wondering about that little rain hole, you say it's about like a 1/4 inch off from the left to the right, but I don't care because those are little rubber grommets that I can just cut. But this actually turned out pretty good. I do grind a little bit more after this, but I got it good enough. I don't want to grind too much off because I want all that weld to stay. You know, it's all structural, so I leave a little bit of booger, but it all gets covered. Here you can see me using the purple power, cleaning up the floor. I actually leave it overnight, and then I go pick up a 59 Cadillac. I just include this. I already made this video. You can go check it out. I bought a 59 parts car for the car, so I threw it in just so I could shout out the video. Go ahead and check that out. I'm going to be using the back end stuff for the ECTO-1. And if you want to, know more about that, go ahead and check that video out. And then the next morning I come back, I do the Eastwood fast etch. And you can see, look how fast it converts the rust. It is shocking. I love that stuff. Obviously I'm wearing a little bit of PPE, just trying to make sure I don't inhale it and I don't burn my hands. Look at this. Look how fast. I mean, obviously I'm playing at like 4,000% speed, but look how fast that is. And then boom, already back to clean metal. I love that stuff. I'd strongly recommend using it. Dare I say, it's essential if you're doing work like this. It does leave a little bit of, what is it called? Flash rust. That little black stuff, it's just stuff I should have been able to burr off, but I didn't care about it. Wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't care about getting too much in there because, like I said, it's all going to get covered by KBS seal, which is actually what the next part of this video is. KBS seal is a form of kind of like POR 15, but it's a lot cheaper, and I love this stuff. Look how easy it goes in. All you do is you just wear a good amount of PPE, and you don't brush over. You don't do a second brush over. You just kind of leave it on and let it dry, and it self levels. This stuff is insane. I make a couple mistakes, but it's very forgiving. This is my first time ever working with it, and I'm for sure going to use it on the entire rest of the car. I love it. It is expensive, but it's a lot less expensive than POR 15, and it does a good job. Honestly, I had no issues with it until I started messing up. You can see this first layer, I do really good. They recommend to do 2 coats, right? And coat 1, I actually do really well. No issues. It all goes down really smooth. Got a really good layer. Then I screw up right after this. Look at this. Look how perfect this is. Right after this, I let it dry for about 3 hours, and then I apply more. And the second layer, I use way too much. I make it go way too thick. Look at that. It's actually really nice. I wish I would have left it like that. I should have just ended at 1 coat. Some people say they only just use 1, the Ford era used 1. Here's me doing my second layer. The floor pan itself, I don't mess up because I just kind of make it look a little less shiny. That's not a huge deal to me. I'm fine with using 2 coats, and I don't care if it looks ugly because I really want the bottom to be rust proof. However, as soon as I move to the floor, I start gooping it on. You can see everything start to drip down and pool, and it causes so many issues. Look at this. Look at this. That's me with a screwdriver scraping off gunk. It's like tar. If you put too much of it on, the finish sucks. I don't know if it traps oxygen inside. It just starts to bubble up. Yeah, it's horrible. I have to use a screwdriver to pry a lot of this off, and then in some of the areas, but then in most of it, I ended up just using a grinder after this. But look at this. That sucks. I don't blame KBS. That was my fault. I should have just listened to the instructions a little bit better. Once I grind this off, I do another coat by hand again, and I get it pretty good after this. That's so bad. Honestly, it wasted a good amount of money too, because that was an expensive little mistake. Yeah, this is what it looks like after I ground down and screwdrivered enough of it off, just to get everything that looked bad off, everything that wanted to come off basically. And then I came back in, did another layer. You're not supposed to do it out of the can, but the last little bit, you know, when I'm about to run out, you know, I just kind of, whatever. It's not going to dry out before I use it all. But yeah, if you're doing it, you know, with a full can, obviously use a little cup like I did. But when you're down to the end, screw it. Yeah, and that's actually where I'm going to end this video. We got a lot of progress done in this part. In the next part, you see us finish some of the rust repair. You can actually see it right there, that little L piece. See us installing that, and then we actually begin the welding. So there's a lot to look forward to in the next video. Also, the next one's the last one, so that's going to be really nice. Oh yeah, see, I did a little POR rust proof in there just to make sure that nothing happens later. And if you take a look at this, I threw this in at the end. When I was installing some of the antenna holes, look at the mouse nest I found. I just thought that would be a fun little way to end the video. Look at that. And the only way to access it is by cutting the quarter panels off, which means I guess we'll have to do that next. Well, guys.